I spent 2 days not knowing where this lid was. It was right here on the counter. Okay, folks, welcome to Sunday. I'm gonna turn my computer so you don't know what my password is. I'm gonna pull up chat. Just give me 2 minutes. It was supposed to be way hotter in New York today than it is currently, and I think it was because we had like a bit more of a thunderstorm in the morning, but the humidity is now climbing back up, and I'm going to say that I don't think I'll be like turning on heat for the next 3 days, unless maybe it's just to boil some water for some tea. Actually, I should probably make a huge batch of tea today rather than wait. Because heat advisory is going up until Wednesday for my area. We're going to do our best to survive it, but apparently it's going to hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit in a couple of days here, which is a temperature that I don't think we reached until well into July last year. I don't know if we ever hit 100, like we hit a heat index of above 100, but right now we're showing temperatures of 100. So with a heat index factored in, I think it's going to be like 108. So it's going to get a little bit boily, and just keep drinking water and staying hydrated, and maybe stay indoors a little bit more, and I hope everybody stays safe. Last year this time is when I got mono and really sick, so we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of my health collapse. We should celebrate it. I survived so far. I think I've been moving through a lot more grief consciously this past month, so I think that's catching up to me too, which is why we're just going to take it easy and slow today. Alright, I'm going to pull up my chat here on my really old MacBook that I never bought. I think Aaron gave this computer to me from one of his former workplaces. Did you know that Apple matches all employee donations to organizations that support the IDF and illegal settlements? I just learned that today. Apparently it was a news headline last year, and I totally missed it, but a reel showed up on Instagram for me today, and it was like, yes, Apple matches donations to the IDF and settlements. So that's fun. Now that you know, not to say that like any other alternative is that much better, because it's still using up resources and probably exploiting labor and all of that, but now that you know, mayhaps it decreases your appetite and yearning for Apple products a little bit more. This is the kind of incremental change that I believe in, is slowly destroying our manufactured desire for things that actually don't help any of us all that much. Like, yes, phones, useful, right? But do you need a new one every year? Do you need to keep upgrading every year? And I think just uncovering the more or less hidden costs of these things that we're not exposed to the manufacturing process of, the extraction process of, will do a lot of good in terms of saving you money, saving you stress and anxiety about not, keeping up with the Joneses. It's going to do good for the environment. It's hopefully going to do good in the long term by driving down demand for this kind of sick game of always doing better and more and shiny. I think we should all use everything we have. Like I've been reusing this paper towel like it's a towel and just rinsing it out, and I'll keep using it, and the last use will be like mopping the floor or my really dirty ass dusty windowsill. I think everything can be used. If it's gonna be trash, use it until it deserves to go in the trash. You know, like you can save a lot of money this way, but even if you don't save a lot of money this way, I think it's going to shift your consumption patterns and also make the stuff that you use a little bit more meaningful. Like, I don't know why I kept thinking about this. I found these rolls of paper towel that I'm almost certain that my mom took from her work, which was kind of surprising for my brain to work through. I found these under her kitchen sink after she passed away, and I was like, Mom wouldn't be the type of person to take stuff from work. But maybe Mom was the type of person to take stuff from work. Or maybe Dad took it from somewhere. Like, this is Dad's MO, to, like, take things from other spaces that are not, like, you can take it, but also not encouraged to take it. And I've definitely taken after Dad in terms of, like, snatching up free pens and stuff like that. But, anyway, if Mom took this, I've been using them. I think I had, like, 6 or 7 rolls to start off with. I just finished a roll of paper towel yesterday. This is a brand new roll of paper towel. And I think the previous roll of paper towel has been on my counter for over a year now. Because I was thinking about it. I was thinking about the last time I changed my paper towel, and I think I was still in my second to last relationship from Hinge, which I got broken up with over in January of 2024. So one roll of this paper towel might have lasted me a year and a half, which is crazy, right? Because I remember giving a roll to my ex who had just run out of paper towels. I think he kind of gave me like a what the fuck face, because who gives each other paper towels? But I was just like, I have a lot of paper towels. You ran out last time. I'm just going to bring you one until you manage to buy more. And I think like within 2 weeks of me visiting him again at his place, like that paper towel was gone, that roll. So it made me think about just like the rate of consumption that each of us are individually attuned to, how mindless we can go through things. I do this too. I'm not a saint, you know, I go through a lot of waste. There are some things that I wish I wouldn't use anymore, but it's just a habit. So I think the most wasteful one-time discard plastic thing that I use in my life is a floss pick. And that's because I can't use normal thread floss. Like, I just can't angle it. I always end up cutting into my gums with those. So the plastic floss picks give me way more control. But yeah, like buying chips, like oatmeal bags. I try to put compost in these like Ziploc bags for produce sometimes, so that they get one more use before I get rid of them. But there's just so much waste in our systems, and I always think about like, can I make another use out of this? Like, get one more use out of it. So, alright, let's wash some veggies and eat some snacks. I'm not going to turn on the heat today. I have some lentils and quinoa cooked in the fridge. I have some vegetables. So we can definitely, I'll make something to eat, but we're not turning on the heat today. I'm going to wash my veggies. Let me show you what I got. I got some shiso leaves from the farmer's market today. I was thinking I could make wraps out of these. You know, I have a lot of canned fish and lentils and quinoa, and I could just make like a little salad and eat them like hand wraps. So that's chillin'. Then I got some Japanese turnips, so I'm gonna wash that, separate the radishes from the greens, and I can probably blanch the greens a couple of days from now when it's not so hot. And I also got a head of fennel. I'm not a huge fan of fennel, but I really wanted the white crispy part to eat as like a tuna salad vessel, like using slices of the fennel bulb as a spoon. So that's why I bought it. But this is a little bit harder for me to eat raw, so I'll think about what to make with that. I'm definitely not throwing the tops away. So this was $3.75. This bunch was $4. This bunch was $4. And that is my farmer's market haul today. I didn't really buy fruits or anything else. And that's what we're gonna work with. In terms of my outfit today, this is a muscle tank that I've had since my restaurant days. We were always told to wear a white undershirt underneath our cooks' or chef's coats. So this is just what I've always had. And then these shorts, I thrifted for $3. It's 100% cotton. I believe the brand is Topshop, and I got it from the Salvation Army when they were running like the 50% off a colored tag sale. And I think this was like $5.99, and because it was half off that day, I got it for $3. So this is a great purchase. I wanted to show off my new $3 shorts. And also these socks are compression socks that Ram gifted me. And they've actually been helping my legs a lot. My muscles have been basically degenerating, and I've been experiencing a lot of joint pain, which is part of why I kept harassing my doctor to figure out what the fuck is wrong with me, because the joint pains were just getting worse and worse. And I've been out walking for the past 2 days, and I think I might have overdone it, so my legs felt like foam that was breaking down. You know the cheap foam sponge, the dishwashing sponges that are like yellow? They feel like that, but like after you use them for 8 months and they're getting really groggy and they don't hold water anymore, like that's what my legs feel like. So these socks are basically trying to, exert some pressure so that my legs can kind of like just be hugged, and hopefully I can be not in so much discomfort. I wore them when I went to sleep last night and they helped. So I'm gonna wear them again today and just hope my body stops struggling like this. So thank you, Ram, for that. And I bought a pineapple because one of you told me that pineapple is great for relieving cramps. So we'll probably go ahead and slice that up after the veggies are washed. And I have a chocolate shake in the blender here. I took a year off of protein powder because I haven't been working out, and I didn't know if I was supposed to eat too much protein when my kidneys started freaking out again. But I recently just bought myself a tub of protein powder because I think with all of this like vegan diet trial for my cholesterol, I'm going to be struggling a little bit to get protein. And so, yes, we're going to try that. We're going to drink that. We're going to hope my body survives whatever it's going through right now. And we'll just keep on doing our best. And yes, technically I'm on my period right now, so I, especially this time of month, should not be having anything cold, but I really don't want to drink anything hot right now. It's getting so humid where I can just feel the heat coming off of my neck and chest from within my body. So I'm just like creating an internal sauna right now with this humidity. I do have magnesium. I stopped taking it. But yes, I have this. Maybe I should go back on it. I'm trying to like take some fish oil too for the cholesterol, but I think the fish oil has been giving me cramps. For some reason, every night after like 7:30 p.m., I just have this it's not even a bloating pain. It feels like my stomach is cramping, and I wonder if it's the fish oil, because I have heard that people suffer a little bit gastrointestinally when they take fish oil. Oh God. So anyway, thanks for being here, and I'm gonna plug you in because you're currently on my Pixel 2 XL, which is holding less and less battery power by the day. But we're gonna keep streaming on my lovely potato phone because we don't need it. We don't need the new things. We don't need the new things. Wow, okay. Ooh, I gave myself a little treat inside the shake today. So I have oat milk, homemade cashew milk in here. I have some protein powder. I added some cocoa powder. I added some mugwort powder, which is supposed to be good for reproductive maintenance. And I have a lot of reproductive issues, just in terms of pain and irregularity, so I put that in there. But today I also dropped in a little bit of mint with 2 exclamation marks, and it is delightfully cooling. There's like a pepperminty, it's like a chocolate peppermint shake right now. Okay, let's get my mentals sorted. So. I'm gonna fish this out, let it drain, then we're gonna pick it off the stems because the stems are very fibrous. I have tried to eat the stems before, it was not very pleasant. It's like kind of painfully fibrous. So we're gonna strip it off the stems, but I'm gonna reuse this rinse water. So basically I try to wash my veggies at least twice, ideally 3 times. But I don't want to dump the water every time. So what I do is I wash first round all the veggies using the same water. Then I dump that water. Then I do a second round, wash all the veggies again, dump it, and then I do a third round. And then the third round of water I keep around to like soak dirty dishes in. So for all you people who are like, she uses way too much water, I'm trying my best to reuse my water too. And it's not because you yelled at me. It's because I think it's the smart way to go to figure out how to be more resourceful. Because you never know when you're not going to have as many resources as you're used to having. So this is a skill set. Yes, you can interpret it as me being frugal and or penny pinching or cheap, or you can interpret it as a practice in skills building. It's all about marketing, baby. I think about people who live in luxury who can't go without the stuff that they're used to. If you watch season 3 of White Lotus, I think the biggest plot twist to me was the daughter. I don't know if I can say any spoiler alerts, so I'll hold off on spoiling it for you, but season 3 was fairly unexciting in terms of plot twists, but I think the biggest plot twist for me was when the daughter, like, made her decision. I'm just trimming down the stalks so that they are short enough to fit fully submerged in my bowl of water. And then I'll let it sit. Oh yeah, there's that licorice-y taste, smell, fragrance hitting me. Yep. That was a very dangerous move. That's why my mom told me to always cut away from my face. Thanks, Mom. Sorry, I'm dumb. Always cut away from your face and your heart and your organs. So we're just gonna let that soak for 10 minutes while I think about what I want to do next, because I'm exhausted. Let me just give you a breakdown of the physical activity that I've been doing, which used to be no problem at all, but is now like a full-on exertion. On Friday was my biggest activity day. All right, let's rewind. So Sunday I went out to the farmer's market. Last Sunday I went out to the farmer's market, and then I basically didn't go out of my apartment until Thursday morning when Samira said, do you want to take a walk? And then I walked outside for 20 minutes with Samira. It was really hot. It was really sunny. And sun is apparently a lupus trigger. So after 20 minutes, very chill stroll, we came back after buying some fruit, and I was just like exhausted. That was Thursday. I had planned to go to Brooklyn with Nez on Friday. My period hit on Friday morning, and I was like cramping pretty bad. Took an ibuprofen, cramping went down. I said, Nez, I can meet up. I walked to Brooklyn. That was an hour and 40-minute walk. That was probably way more walking than I should have done in order to, pace it better for myself. Then we hung out in Brooklyn, and I started feeling better. I bought myself a kombucha. I drank it. I felt refreshed, and I said, the sun's down now. The temperature is perfect. There's a lovely central breeze coming through the air. Do I want to take the subway for an hour with other gross people on a Friday evening, or do I want to walk home? And I chose to walk home, which was probably not smart for my physical exertion limits. And the last hour of that return walk was grueling. I was like snailing along and so slow, but I made it. And then I just kind of like laid on the floor, covered in sunscreen and sweat and city grime. And Memo came over to check me twice if I was like alive or dead, I think. And also to ask me to feed him, which I did eventually. And then I dragged myself off to the shower. And that was Friday. And then on Saturday, I walked to Sunnyside yesterday to meet up with my pastry chef friend, Diana. And that was a 40-ish minute walk to Sunnyside. And then we walked from Sunnyside to Elmhurst, which was an hour walk. And then I walked another 20 minutes to meet up with friends, and then I walked back home. So yesterday, I probably walked 2.5 hours again after walking over 3 hours the previous day. So today I just went to the farmer's market, and I don't think I'm going to go outdoors for the next 3 days because the heat wave is coming. I have no reason to go out of doors, and I'm just going to chill and recover and see how my body feels. But yes, I definitely packed in way too much walking, especially now that it's hot and sunny. But I'm really glad that I did it, and I'm really glad that I'm still like here and able to sit here, even though I am really tired. It's always good to know that I'm capable of walking, but I wouldn't want to do that to myself on a weekly basis because I think it does take a lot out of my body, and then my body basically has to work overtime to recuperate. But that's where my health is standing, and I know I'm going vegan, but yesterday when I met up with Diana, we went to this bakery called Masa Madre, and we had a concha, which is a really, 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 really delicious brioche bun with like a little, almost like a little streusel topping. So that definitely wasn't vegan, but I only had a quarter of it. And I still have a fudgesicle and some Go-Gurt frozen in the fridge, and I think those are gonna be my like vegan cheats. Just to have like a little bit of a sweet icy treat to kind of tide me over these incoming miserable summer days. But I think for the most part, I'm going to do my best to stay away from all other dairy. I'm going to limit the Go-Gurt to 2 a day max. Maybe 2 on that 100-degree day, and then 1 a day if it's just a normal day. And hopefully we see some decrease on the cholesterol front, but who knows? Nana Sila, to your question, I have done my own version of Budget Eats. I did it the winter I got fired from Delish. The H Mart one performed pretty okay. The Lidl one performed a little bit weaker. I also did other cooking videos that were not Budget Eats formatted, that touched on way more personal issues and philosophies. I really liked making those, but I'm not making any more of those in the foreseeable future because I don't have the energy to do it. I also don't have enough desire to do it yet because of just everything that has been going on. I think creating new content that people want to see is creating a venue of escapism, and I'm not against escapism. I think it's healthy to take a break from all the detrimental bad feelings that we're all kind of suffocating under, but we're also living in a time of unmatched venues for escapism. We have so much consumerism, so much content, just endless content. So I don't think it's really productive for me to create even more escapist content. If I ever do cooking, it's not going to be like Budget Eats. I think that's done for me. I think other people have probably kept on doing variations of that show, and they can do it differently and better and funner. I don't think I'm in that place of mind anymore to be able to present the version of Budget Eats that you would want to see. It wouldn't be natural or organic, so it wouldn't hit the same for me or for you. And if I do create content again, which I hope to one day, I think it's going to be a very different variety of content. Not completely different because I'm still me, but there's a lot that's happened, and there's no way I can make content without addressing all the changes that have happened, both internally, personally in my own life, dealing with family death, dealing with health issues, and externally and environmentally regarding, genocide and just the ridiculousness of capitalism that we've hit at this stage of just it's a joke. We're living in a joke right now. We're living in a horrible, violent, brainless joke. Just the combination of AI and whatever the fuck the world leaders are doing, and just like the blatant kind of corruption that is happening, and the blatant presentation of disregard for law, which has always been a myth and a lie of sorts, depending on what class and tier and caste you were born into. But now more than ever, I think we can see through it, right? All the propaganda is kind of starting to fall away. If you're okay with observing what's going on, I think it's really easy to watch it all fall away. So that's what's been going through my head. I've been thinking about making content. Both friends and acquaintances and strangers have told me they miss Budget Eats and all of that. Many a time, constantly, throughout the years. And I get it, but, I think that's holding on to a past time that is no longer valid for me. It's expired. And I think going back to making something like Budget Eats would be like someone in their 60s and 70s trying to have plastic surgery to look like they're in their 20s again, which is possible. Like, plastic surgery has gotten to a point where it's like unbelievably good in terms of results, and but it's just not for me. So unlikely, not impossible, but extremely unlikely. So thank you for hearing out my rant, and I'm sorry to disappoint you, but there's plenty of other content that I think you can seek to get a taste of the Budget Eats high. But I am no longer the same. And I don't think the world is the same. And I don't think you're the same. And I think it might be really, really, really awesome for us to move together into a different level of existence. Yeah, I mean, I see things to like the extreme level sometimes, and other people just like look at me like I'm a freak, and I get it, I totally do. But I do see a lot of things as escapism. Ready consumerism as escapism, body modification, which I do partake in. You know, I have tattoos, piercings, I fuck with my hair, I change up my style. Like, I think that's all escapism. I'm not saying escapism is bad, by the way. The line between escapism and creativity can be so fine sometimes, and like we need this beauty that can come out of escapism. But I think our world is right now where escapism has been co-opted by capitalistic forces to the point where like we sink ourselves into a sort of labor slavery in order to gain a breath of escapism as a reward. And it's like really fucked up between how much we have to work to get to that reward. And I've been thinking about how do we reward ourselves without having to enslave ourselves. And I understand that's putting it into very extreme words and concepts, but I do look at it this way because I look at a lot of my friends who are employed and really unhappy in their employment. I look at my friends who are unemployed and really unhappy because they can't find a job, and all the jobs that are out there are like not what they want to do, and just feel really demoralizing. I have friends who do like what they do, but they are so few and far in between. So I look at it like it's a societal illness of sorts, you know, like this pervasive sense of unhappiness that we've accepted as normal, this kind of lifelong grueling to get to this fairy tale of retirement, rest, and enjoyment. My mom died without ever having retired and like taken vacations and done all the stuff that she dreamed of doing. So I think that hit me particularly hard, and that kind of pushed me into facing what it is that we keep on living for, and what are we putting as a carrot on the stick for ourselves, like this sort of self-policed servitude. I don't have an answer, but I think the starting point is to really understand what it means to respect yourself in a world that doesn't respect you, and doesn't respect human, and doesn't respect life, and doesn't know what respect is anymore. I look at a lot of the features of our society and mechanisms, and there's just no fundamental respect anymore. And that's how genocide can become an acceptable feature. And it's only going to happen more and more. The genocide in Gaza is a very explicit presentation of genocide, but genocides have been happening in so many different varieties. Environmental genocide has happened continuously in a lot of ways. And this sort of normalization of demoralization, of like gritting your teeth and bearing through lifelong indentured servitude to labor in order to keep your health insurance, in order to have housing, in order to be able to feed yourself and your family. It's all connected, you know? So that's why the misery is so entrenched, and I think that's why we're so angry and explosive and aggressive towards ourselves, each other, even our loved ones sometimes bear the brunt of that just unbelievable bottling of sadness. Like it's this kind of like screaming little creature who feels helpless and powerless inside, that's just so desperate to get out, and we can't seem to find the way out. So I think understanding how it is that you can care for yourself and respect yourself in a world that doesn't have any value towards respecting each other, is a very fundamental first step. So it's a hard task, but it's a very fundamental task. Okay. Time to switch out our veggies. I love these Japanese turnips so much. They're small and they're sweet and they're crispy. They do give me some really bad farts sometimes. But I love how crunchy they get. It's just like a very sweet, hearty, crisp experience. And then for $4, I get, like 10 turnips. And then I get a bunch of greens. I feel like it's a pretty good deal. I get to support a local farmer. I always thought like this was way more expensive than supermarket stuff and that I was being luxury buyer by going to the farmer's market. It took me a while to like kind of accommodate my brain to being used to going to farmer's markets for my produce. And then it was really funny when my dad came to visit me. And my dad is like the penny pincher that I grew up with, that like I absorbed all of these kind of frugal budget living tips and habits from. And he was the one who was like, wow, it must be really hard for these farmers to like do this for a living. Not only grow and harvest all these veggies, but like truck them all the way here, and then they have to stand outside for hours and they're only selling each bunch of vegetables for $4. And I think that was a turning point in my brain where I was like, yeah, that's actually not that much money. Like, yes, it's maybe double or quadruple the price that I would pay in a supermarket, but Dad was the one who put it into perspective for me, and my brain just kind of clicked into place. It's really hard growing out of your childhood habits, when my parents were raising me as like fresh immigrants to the US, like they were super low income, and the goal was to save whenever possible, because we didn't have that ability to be lavish. So I kind of retained that habit throughout my life, and I'm really grateful for it. I love being frugal. But there are some points in my life now where I just have to coach myself to allow myself to enjoy spending money, which feels very fraught, right? Because money itself is it can be an evil tool, right? It is a tool used for evil, but trying to reframe everything is a task. It's hard being a human and having a brain and trying to like logically coalesce and make all of these contradictions fit and work as a system, because sometimes it just doesn't make sense. You're told your whole life that you should earn money and save and, you know, be successful. And then once you get to a certain point of being successful, you're like, oh shit, like this shit is kind of dirty. Like this circle that I have to survive in to be successful is dirty. It's not good for me. But I've been told my whole life it is good for me. And I learned that in media. The turning point when I learned that in media was when we were in lockdown and I made that chickpea video. Do you remember that chickpea video where I made like 19 different recipes with canned chickpeas and all my grocery store had were Goya? And that was the year in 2020 when we started canceling Goya because Goya's CEO came out in support of Trump. And I remember I shot that entire video using only Goya canned chickpeas because that's all I had access to in my store. And we made a thumbnail for that video that showed me smiling against a wall of Goya cans that I had purchased. And it was like the morning that video went live, our editor-in-chief freaked out because she was like, Goya's canceled, we can't possibly use this. And I was like, what do you mean? I just spent like a whole week and a half shooting it and editing, and we edited it, and she was like, change the thumbnail. This was on a weekend, by the way. She like emergency slacked all of us, and our design director, our art director had to like come online and make a new thumbnail, and like we had to basically put this fire out, right? So we made a whole fiasco on the weekend on our off day to change out this thumbnail because Goya was canceled and we didn't want to be called out for using a canceled brand. Fast forward less than a year later, we put out a print magazine at Delish. And lo and behold, next to the recipe that I contributed to that magazine was a full page ad for Goya. That was when it fully clicked for me that there are no morals when it comes to business, especially media. Because media makes its money and survives because it's a platform for advertisement. All of the money that came through to Delish was ad revenue. Everything that we did from recipe development was to generate traffic to our site. In fact, Budget Eats as a show was first rejected as a show idea because our editor-in-chief said it was not on brand for our audience, and also how could a YouTube series possibly drive traffic back to site? Because the whole goal, every fiber of our being working at that brand was to drive more traffic to our site. Because why? The more visitors, the more unique visitors and clicks that you get into your site, the more numbers, the higher your numbers you can present to advertisers. And you can say like 40 million people came, definitely advertise with us, and that's how you get money when they place advertisement spots with you. So that's what media is. If the vegan diet doesn't bring your cholesterol down, will you revert back to your original diet? I'll see, right? If the vegan diet doesn't fudge with my numbers at all, that would be alarming. That would insinuate that, well, obviously I'm not able to exercise. I think exercising would definitely help bring it down because that's why I used to exercise almost every day. But let's just say that this diet doesn't change my numbers at all. I think that would clue me into just how genetic it is. Then I might have to consider going on statins. I don't want to. I think the debate is out on whether or not statins work for everyone, and also the side effects of statin. I also have to weigh it with my lupus diagnosis. I'm getting more diagnostic tests next month, I hope. I'm seeing a rheumatologist specialist. And if my lupus is bad enough, I'll have to probably go on medication for lupus too. So then I'll have lupus medication and cholesterol medication, and they might be like fucking with each other. So we'll have to find out more information before I decide what to do. But I think this was a wake-up call. Like this last blood test, lupus is definitely enlightening and devastating at the same time to know, but this cholesterol level thing is was a wake-up call because I have been eating um, too much because I've been using food as a coping mechanism. So I think now that I know my cholesterol is like way too hijacked, it'll help me kind of like have a dialogue with myself a little bit before I default to food as a coping mechanism. I do think I've been leading a relatively unhealthy lifestyle. I'm not judging myself for it because I've had a lot to cope with, so it's natural that I had to cope somehow with all of this kind of like physical health degradation and grief and just everything. But moving forward, this is a point of data for me to incorporate into how I make my decisions. So I don't think I'll default back to my previous diet in terms of like eating so much cheese and so much dairy. I think I'll probably still cut down on some of that. And we'll see. Sometimes change isn't immediate. Sometimes change takes a long time. Sometimes change is a lifelong endeavor, as we're seeing politically. So day by day, I'm not too worried. Honestly, I think watching my mom die and then watching my grandma die has all been a part of death work and death training. So it would be devastating to learn that like whatever I have is like aggressive or, you know, end stage, whatever the case may be. But I think I'm in a better place now to handle that kind of transitioning. So we'll see. I am turning 36 this year. I am an 89 baby. Is everything organic at the farmer's market? No. Two layers to that answer. One is the word organic is highly regulated by the USDA. Small farms and operations sometimes can't call themselves organic, even though they may be even more organic than those certified to use the word organic, because it costs a lot of money and oversight to get organic certification and to maintain organic certification. So it's sometimes not worth operations to get certified for organic labeling. Secondly, organic labeled stuff sometimes are not as organic as you think, because governmental regulations allow certain pesticides to still be used, even if they are certified organic. It's very convoluted. All of this stuff is just like bullshit. It's not all bullshit, but there's always some bullshit in there, you know? So I just buy from people who are nice to me. I buy from people whose stuff looks good, whose stuff looks fresh, and they're nice to me. I don't really like to go back to people who have been mean to me. A lot of the farmers here, like, if it comes to like $11.30, sometimes they don't even make me pay the 30 cents. They just like, you know, they round down. They're nice in the small ways, and it just feels very human. And sometimes I'll still buy supermarket stuff. I actually like supermarket carrots better. I don't know why. I think they're just like more bland and crunchier and sweeter. And the farmer's market carrots sometimes are like more fibrous and tough and potentially grittier. So, you know, I pick my battles sometimes. But it's not like the black and white, is this better or worse? It's just what works for you. Statins can affect the liver, but milk thistle can reverse this effect if taken for a month. That's good to know. Thank you. Yeah, someone recommended milk thistle for Memo when he was having liver enzyme issues. So that's good to know. That's the main reason why I don't want to go on statins, actually, is when I had a kidney disease as a kid, I had to take some medication, and those were also really tough on my liver, which I think then led to me developing high cholesterol. I was basically diagnosed with IgA nephropathy when I was like 8. That's my kidney disease. Then I had to go on prednisone, and my parents also made me go on like a hybrid Chinese medicine and Western medication pill that they are convinced is what like cured me. It didn't cure me. It just treated me enough so that my kidney disease went into remission for the most part when I hit puberty. And then when I hit puberty around year 14 years old, my cholesterol was already in the 190s. I remember testing 198 when I was 14, and I was like 92, 95 pounds then. I was like underweight, and underweight with high cholesterol, and that's when my cholesterol issues started. That's kind of what led me to even more disordered eating, because on top of like social pressure and miseducation and a friend with an eating disorder affecting me socially and mentally, I also had this concern that if I kept eating fatty stuff, my cholesterol was going to go through the roof and I would die of a heart attack, because I was 14, and that's like how catastrophic things were to me in my brain at that time. So my cholesterol has always been high since my teens. I had it under control for the most part, because I balanced out my exercise and diet. But now that I don't have access to I don't have access to exercise anymore because of my lack of physical energy and ability, I can only resort to diet experimentation right now. Also, Daisuke, my Japanese friend, doesn't really care about cholesterol, so the jury is out, right? Like, some people have high cholesterol, but they don't develop heart disease. However, my mom probably died from some form of heart disease. So it does run in the family. Either way, guys, it's written in the stars to some degree, so I'm not too worried. There's only so much I can do. Let's just experiment and play with it. I'm looking at this with mostly a curiosity point of view of what can I do? Will this make a difference? Let's see. And then we just keep trying things, But I'm going to save medication as like a last resort, because I feel like with statins, they do have a lot of side effects, and they are kind of for life. They don't recommend you ever coming off of them, because your body might get used to them, and then when you come off of them, your cholesterol might shoot even higher than they were before. There's just a lot of possibilities. Medication and science and doctors are not the end-all be-all. They don't know everything. A lot is still unknown, so that's all. We will all die. Let's make peace with that while we can. What I do know is that I do not feel good today. I know I didn't give you an emotional health number yet. I think I'm at an 8 emotionally, but I've been having this, like, feels like someone is, like, trying to magnet my brain away from me. So I've had this, like, strained headache for about 7 hours now. It's like a 4 or a 5 out of 10, so it's not too painful. But it's kind of distracting. How do you tell if produce is fresh or good? Are the leaves green? How much blemishing is there? And there's a difference between bad blemish and good blemish. Like, some apples have dimples and russeting, and those are the most delicious apples. But if you see a lot of bruising or wrinkling, that's a bad apple. And some apples you can't tell. Some apples are like rotting from the core within. It's the same way with life. I don't know. It's always a gamble, but there are signs that you can pay attention to, and every produce has different signs to look out for. And I think you can Google it. I'm sure the internet has covered how to pick good produce by now. But over time, I think it's more of a gut instinct thing. You can tell by smelling sometimes. Is there a scent? Is there a fragrance? That is often a clue to the flavor of it. If it looks smooth, it's probably crisp. How heavy does it feel? If something is really large in size but feels lighter than it should for its size, it's probably kind of dried out inside. It's probably past its prime or grown in some weird way. That probably means it's not as flavorful. So always go for something that looks heavier than it looks like it should, because that often guarantees there's more moisture and sugar content inside. This is especially true with fruit, like watermelon. Oh yes, it's your mom. Okay, your mom called bullshit on cholesterol, but do you care about cholesterol now, or do you not care about cholesterol now? Because I do think it's like a mindset thing. I think the more you stress about something having a negative effect on you, the more of a negative effect it has on you. It's like placebo effect, which has been scientifically proven to be a thing, right? Placebo pills tend to work. Even if you know it's a placebo sometimes, it still works. Which is why sometimes it is truly mind over matter. It's weird. We're weird, guys. Our world is weird. We're weird. We think we have knowledge and that we know everything and that there is truth, but like, truth can always be challenged. It just depends on how determined you are to challenge it and how much time and energy you are willing to devote to it. I think you can always dig a deeper hole to find out more, to find out difference, you know? So oh my gosh. Peaches? Okay. Peaches. This is how I pick peaches. Sometimes peaches don't smell until 2 days after you buy them. However, I always look for peaches that have hit at least some area with this color. They don't have to be entirely deep red like this, but I need to see some degree of bright, deep crimson red. This is a yellow peach. White peaches have slightly different coloration, but I always look for this kind of like dark blush to light blush, covering at least half of the fruit. These have sat on my counter for 2 days and they are fragrant. If you buy them and they're fragrant, chances are they're gonna taste really good already. And when they are ripe, you press them a little bit like avocado and they should give a little bit like avocado. So that's how I pick my peaches. But I have bought bad peaches before, but you can usually tell if they're too hard, if they smell green, like if they smell like a plant stem, there's a 50% chance they'll never be good. But it's kind of hit and miss if you buy them from the supermarket, because you never know where they're being shipped in from. You never know if that crop was picked too young and too green. You never know if they've like been gassed to turn color, which doesn't help the flavor but just makes them look prettier. There's a lot of sketchy stuff that industries have done to fool you into thinking you're buying something good, and that extends to way more than just the food industry. So this is another reason why we really have to like tune into ourselves, because nobody really knows. 1, 2, there's a lot of lying going on and it's become common practice. So you can never trust someone, especially if they have something to sell you and something to gain from you, materialistically. True in dating as well. Took me a couple of years to find out, but this is the world that I think my mom was always trying to prepare me for and protect me from. But I don't think she actually ever realized that like no one is good and no one is as bad as she thinks they are. Overall, obviously there are oddballs. Everyone's a little bit mixed of both, and they can be good in one scenario and bad in another, and it's an ongoing exercise of you having to use your instinct to judge whether or not you want to proceed interacting with someone. So it's a skill that I have not been training because my mom's always trying to protect me. It's only a skill that I've had the opportunity to train after she's been gone. Yeah, if my mom says not to worry about it, I'm not gonna worry about it. Fair. I would do the same. We also like to pick what to believe in, like if it suits us. So I think your mom saying not to believe in it is something that suits you and the lifestyle that you want to lead, which if you're happy believing, then great. I think I've said this before, but one of my favorite things I've ever written is like survival is believing in your own lies, you know? Like we all have to choose what to believe in. So you just have to convince yourself of what you want to believe in and believe in it. That is where happiness begins. Believing in yourself. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people in power have done too much of that, and they are now destroying not only themselves, but other people by believing too much in themselves. So it is all a game of balance. I also think if you've never had luck with peaches, nectarines, and stone fruit in general, it might be dependent on where you live. Maybe you live in a place that just is too far from where this stuff grows, and all of the inventory that you get is shipped from too far away. And to endure shipment of such fragilely skinned fruit means that they have to pick it really green so that the fruit survives the journey, which often means it's a trade-off with flavor. This is why I don't think we should have access to everything all the time. I think we're so used to having access to all these things that are out of season and not local, and it's an illusion. Yes, you have access to tomatoes all year round, but do they taste good all year round, or do they taste like sea foam sometimes? And wouldn't you rather be spending your money eating something else that actually is in season and is in the area that you live in that tastes good? Everything's a trade-off. I think it would be impossible for me to not feel like some degree of envy or jealousy when I see celebrities looking so hot and perfect. But then I think how much work, money, energy, stress, and physical pain and mental pain did they have to endure to go through all those procedures and to maintain that look? And how much pressure do they experience on a daily basis that forces them to maintain that look for the rest of their lives? You know, like that's their job. I like cooking, but when I had to do it as a job, I liked cooking less sometimes. Because when you have to monetize yourself like that, it's exhausting. I loved making budget eats, but at a certain point I hated seeing my face over and over again on screen, you know? I had to watch myself while I filmed it, watch myself during the rounds of editing, watch myself when it was on the final premiere so I can chat with folks as the video went live. And then there would be screenshots of me everywhere, and it's just like, it's exhausting, especially if you have body image issues and you don't want to look at yourself, you don't want to be reflected and mirrored back. Like, I think about how exhausting it is to be a celebrity. You have to be on all the time. It's almost like you don't get a break from that job, because like, that's what people know you as. As a thought experiment sometimes, I think about the world we could have if we never had mirrors invented. So we could never like judge ourselves at every given moment, right? Not only do we have mirrors now, we have phones that can take selfies, we have filters that can make us look quote unquote prettier with the click of a button so that we can like compare ourselves to non-existent fantasy versions of ourselves that are digitized. We have so much ads in our lives. I think about what our quality of life and our self-conceptualization would be if we didn't have ads assaulting us everywhere. On the subway, on our media, TV, on our phones, right? Like, even labels of products we've already bought feel like advertisements for more purchases in the future, you know? They kind of like reify and reproduce your desire for them. It feels good to buy a brand name thing. You feel like you've made it on some level, that you're like good enough or rich enough to deserve this like top brand thing. And then once you have it, you kind of don't want to let go of it, right? I think that's how Apple's whole branding goes. It's like you have the newest, latest iPhone that everybody wants, that is like prettier or more features or something. It becomes a drug addiction cycle, essentially. And again, drugs can be good. Drugs can save lives. You know, shrooms showed me a whole different way to look at myself and the world and existence, dimensionality. But like, if you become addicted to a drug, that's a whole other thing. Use the drug, do not let it use you, but it's a very fine line of control, right? Because everything that you take also takes from you. It's a relationship. Everything's in relationship. So I think being more selective with what you give your attention to is like the first step in regaining ownership of yourself. Because I think we've lost a lot of ownership of ourselves because we've become so disconnected from ourselves. Not because we chose to, but because we were required to at some point to hand over control of ourselves in order to survive. And I think that's where we have to learn to draw the line of how life can be a drug addiction in and of itself. How the thought of survival can become an addiction, right? People want to survive at any cost. Like, is that what you want? Or do you lose self-respect and a certain type of sovereignty once you become addicted to the thought of life? I think by seeking control, we also lose it at the same time. Okay, so my Japanese turnips are all cleaned. I'm going to soak them separately in their own little bowl. And then I'm going to dump my first batch of rinsed water. I think the shiso leaves were fairly clean, so I'm going to rinse them twice. I think the fennel is fairly clean too. I think 2 rinses will do for today. That sounds good. This is why I haven't gone live in a few weeks, because this is all I do on Sunday sometimes, is just spend 2 hours washing vegetables. if you like this, I'm happy to do this. But I feel like maybe 20 of you want to watch me wash veggies for 2 hours. I've had to process a lot of self-judgment too, I think, because I used to be able to multitask. I used to be able to wash vegetables as I was putting something on the stovetop while I cut fruit for myself to chat while ranting about all of the things. And now I can only wash vegetables and maybe rant. So, had to adjust my own self-image and acceptance of my decreased capacity for activity. Plums can be very hit and miss. I will tell you something though. I like to buy plums that look like they have that ashy white layer. I think that's a layer of natural yeast. I look for that when I buy blueberries too. I look for that when I buy grapes too. Not when grapes look like they've had like muddy water splashed on them and encrusted on them, but there are some grapes that have that like almost frosted looking layer on them. I tend to think that those fruits with like natural yeast layers on them tend to taste better. I don't really, most of the time, unless I'm really desperate for a plum, I don't buy them if they look super shiny and waxed. I feel like those are kind of like 50-50 gamble of how good they taste. Sometimes they're dry, sometimes the seeds have cracks, sometimes they actually taste bitter. Yeah. It is very, very gambly buying fruits though. Also, plastic surgery isn't a forever fix, you know, like, you do have to maintain it. You get Botox, you get touch-ups, you get re-injections, and then facelifts, I think, have to be refreshed like every 8 to 10 years if you want to maintain that. They do droop. Boob jobs droop too. Sometimes, like, the implants don't settle in the right way. There's underneath the muscle and above the muscle implants, and like sometimes they bulge out because it's your body. You put something foreign in your body doesn't know what to do with it sometimes, you know? Like, it's not always a perfect fix. There's costs and gambles to everything. Everything's a gamble. Dating is a gamble. Going into a new job is a gamble because you don't know if you're gonna like your boss or your coworkers or, you know, the office setting, the culture. You just don't know a lot of things. Moving to a new place is a gamble, right? Aaron and my last place in Woodside, perfect in every sense. Best landlord we ever had. So responsive, so kind, even reduced rent for us during the pandemic. But the noise that came from the airplanes, because we were like on the landing pad to LaGuardia, made it impossible to sleep sometimes, which like is a huge detrimental factor to quality of life if I can't sleep. So sometimes you just don't know. It's all managing expectations and reality, and most times reality is not as good because we've segued ourselves into this segment of history where everything is advertised to be the solution to all of your sadnesses, and it's impossible to have such quick solutions because some sadnesses are just a fundamental part of life. Unhappiness is unavoidable. And so when we have trained ourselves to be unable to accept unhappiness is when we become even more unhappy. So that's why I was talking with a couple of friends about like normalizing unhappiness, because I think only when you normalize unhappiness, I'm not saying like always want and desire unhappiness, I think that's kind of like delusional, and also impossible. But once you accept unhappiness, it no longer becomes an obstacle to you experiencing happiness. If you reject unhappiness on every level, you will constantly be rejecting at every part and point of your life. because I think unhappiness is just built into the experience of existence. Protein shake. Okay, so Valeria says, I want to learn how to age gracefully and still love myself when the world deems women over 40 worthless. Yes, but also let's deconstruct that a little bit, right? How to age gracefully? By whose standards? Are we measuring that only on physicality and presentation, or are we measuring that from a state of mind and the kindness and grace we extend to ourselves, right? There's a lot of mind and body connection too. I found that sometimes I feel like a dumpy piece of shit because my body's falling apart. I don't have muscles anymore to carry me through the day. But sometimes I just like stand in the mirror and I observe how just the posture in which I hold myself can change my perception of myself in just like a few seconds, right? So I can stand like this. This is my natural stance, right? A little bit of like a belly out, shoulders caved. This is my kind of like, my body's kind of in pain and I'm weak and I don't want to be standing up. But if I bring my shoulders back and up a little bit, that opens up my lungs. It makes it easier for the air to kind of segue its way into my body. So then I take a breath and I cycle out some of the old air in my body and I bring in some new air and I'm kind of like inflating myself, right? So, okay, now I've opened up the front part of my body. I've lifted myself up. My shoulders are a little bit, sturdier. So I feel like I have structure. I feel like I have support, right? And this is all internal support within my own body. And then I saw like a dance instructor video on Instagram one day, and she was like, not only do you have to open up the front body because you can't just walk around like this, you also have to like try to expand your back too. So it's kind of like a balance of expanding your front and expanding your back, right? And then you try to just like expand both. And that changes the way you hold your entire core. So I might have had like a dumpier stomach before I changed this posture, but I open up my front, I expand and stretch out my back. That holds my body into balance so that my stomach is kind of more tucked into my spine now. I'm not sucking in, it's just the way that I've postured myself that kind of sets these organs into place. And now it's kind of like you had shoes and clothing hanging out of a cubby hole and it's disorganized, and now you've just kind of like folded everything neatly and you've inserted it all the way into the cubby so the cubby looks neater. None of the components have changed. The cubby is still the cubby, the shirt and the jacket and the shoes are still the shoes and the jacket and the shoes, but they've now kind of assembled themselves to be more fitting. Perception is so much of how we look at things, but so easily shifted and changed. And I think that's how propaganda works. They say a catchphrase, they say something that connects with you, and then suddenly you find yourself believing in everything that they say. So everything can be shifted depending on whether or not you allow yourself to experience that shift. So be careful. We're very malleable. Even when we think we're stubborn, we are constantly being molded by everything. Internally, externally, and external can be internalized. So your environment is dictating a lot of what you are and what you do and what you think, even without you realizing it. Chocolate does help with temporary unhappiness, which is why I bought myself a chocolate protein shake. And then going back to Valeria's point about how do I love myself when the world deems women over 40 worthless, who's the world, right? Yes, a lot of the world is brainwashed and propagandized to discard women as worthy human beings after a certain age because they've hit menopause. You know, their body changes, they can't reproduce anymore. And so much of our world and perception and value system is conformed and contorted to uphold this like god of reproduction. Not only reproduction of capital, but reproduction of human beings, because human beings are the basis of production for more capital generation. So if we draw the line of why we prize certain things in our current state of society, it often comes back to, are you worthy as a cog in the machine? And if you can't be used, you're useless. Which is why I realized that it is actually a blessing to be useless sometimes. It's a blessing that I got fired. Thankfully I had savings to kind of sustain myself so that I didn't turn into a homeless person and, you know, be endangered in so many aspects. But it's a great thing that I got fired because like that working culture was toxic, it was poisonous, and my boss didn't really like me and obviously used HR to fire me. So like I didn't have support in that environment. I had coworkers who supported me, but they were not the ones in charge of that culture and the punitive measures that governed that structure. It's a good thing that I've become worthless. I really leaned into my worthlessness as a woman because after 2 years of dating strangers on Hinge, I've discovered that like being a woman and playing the part of a woman means that I get more likely to be used. Because women are used in society. We're used as reproductive units to generate babies and humans. We're used for emotional support because that's the gender role that we were brought up in. I'm not saying we as women, as biological women or whatever kind of identity, but like the gender role is, if you identify as a woman, the gender role of a woman is to be a supporting figure. So to be a woman is to be used. To be useful is to be used. So sometimes if I'm useless, I'm not putting myself up for you being used by others. So it is protective to be useless, which I think I've heard of some people saying, you know, like sexual assault survivors sometimes try to make themselves ugly, you know, by either gaining weight or dressing in a certain way to hide their features because it's like protecting themselves from future attacks. Like they're traumatized and they, rightly so, fear being attacked again. And so think about what it means to be useful. Useful for who? Useful for what? So yeah, that's my thought on that. And yes, we will age, we will look uglier, if you want to say it like that, because that's what we've been trained to think, that wrinkles and saggy skin is ugly. But if we take that judgment away and just say, this is just a natural way of experiencing and going through life, you know, if we had a different culture that had way less advertisement, less centered around reproduction, and this fear of death, we would have totally different value judgments of what is normal and what is abnormal, of what is useful and what is useless, and what is beautiful and what isn't beautiful. KJ, you just found out you have high cholesterol, you are a smallish active person. I don't know if dairy is the culprit in my case, but certainly it could be. I just found out I have high cholesterol like 2 weeks ago, so I'm making some changes in my diet for the next 3 months to see if I can bring down my cholesterol numbers through diet alone, because I'm not able to be super active right now. But I would say if you're worried about your cholesterol numbers, make some changes and treat it like an experiment. You know, log a certain amount of time, log what you are getting rid of in your diet, and go back in 3 months and check your cholesterol again. Or if it's not that dire and you're still young, maybe just make some lifestyle changes and go back in a year for your physical annual blood checkup. It just depends on how bad your case is, you know, how urgent it is, case by case basis. I don't think it's the same for everyone, which is why you have to figure it out for yourself. You know, I have friends who can eat like shit, but they're active and they are not genetically disposed to high cholesterol and heart issues, and they have no problem. So, dairy might not be the culprit for them ever, but given my health issues as a kid, given my autoimmune issues, given my inactive lifestyle right now, given my depression, like, who knows? Yes, dark chocolate and cinnamon have trace amounts of lead, and rice has arsenic. These are just elemental things. They exist in the soil, they exist in our environment, which is why we need to eat everything in moderation. Some companies are shadier than others, so they actually incorporate more lead in the production process because they're either using old equipment or like they're grinding down on something and those traces end up in the final product. So sourcing is important, and so is processing. But this is another reason why the less processed food you eat, you know, the healthier you probably will end up being, because you have more control over what actually makes it into your system. But there's arsenic in rice, you know, so like, and yes, of course it depends on where the rice was grown, but there's arsenic in rice. So does that mean you're never gonna eat rice? Apparently glass products have more microplastics in them than plastic products do. This was like a meme headline that Erin sent in our group chat yesterday, so I haven't fact checked it myself, but they're you know, processed foods. So there's a hidden cost to these things. There's a hidden cost to convenience all the time. We're poisoning ourselves because we want convenience at every stage. There's a trade-off for that. So the more convenient and streamlined your life is, the more hidden costs have gone into maintaining that lifestyle. If you're not cooking, someone else is cooking that food for you, someone else is delivering that food to you, someone else is washing the dishes for you, and yes, you're paying for it, but they're also paying for it in terms of energy. You know, energy cannot be created or destroyed, so somewhere along the chain that energy is going into the produce and the product and the end result and you. I will be voting, yes, why not? It's a game, right? But yeah, of course I'll be voting, why not? It's like you got a lottery ticket, why not use it? You'll never win, but why sit it out? Alright, I'm starting to get hungry and I have finished my shake, so let me take my lentils and quinoa out of the fridge. the way, a couple of you left a comment on my last live saying that salt intake might have an impact on cholesterol, so I googled it a little bit, and apparently, I mean, obviously too much salt intake is just not good for you, right? We all know that it raises blood pressure and all that, but I was specifically looking into sodium levels impact on cholesterol, and apparently if you reduce your sodium intake too much, it can actually elevate LDL cholesterol. Health is very confusing. So obviously I shouldn't eat a lot of salt anyway because I have pre-existing kidney issues, and we just, unless I'm sweating a lot, which I might be in the next few days, but I'm not that active, I probably should decrease my salt level intake a little bit, but health is very confusing. It's not like less salt is always good, right? You need some. So I'm not gonna deprive myself too much, variable at a time. I think going mostly vegan with a side of pescatarian protein intake is gonna be my experiment for the next 3 months, but very interesting. I'm not sure what salt does to the cholesterol, but some studies say that lowering it too much can have a worse effect on the LDL, the bad cholesterol. Is that true? IDK. I'm not a scientist. Okay. This is black quinoa, and it's really freaking me out. It's tripping up my, like, trypophobia a lot. It looks really gross. And it's extremely gritty, this batch that I bought. So that'll be the last time I buy black quinoa. I'm gonna suffer through this. I'm not going vegan for real. I'm going vegan mostly for 3 months, but I'm still gonna eat canned fish for protein, and I'm gonna have a little bit of frozen yogurt treats. I have like Go-Gurt sticks in the freezer for the summer, but this is mostly just to experiment with whether or not I can lower cholesterol by diet alone. Oh my god, that quinoa is so visually disturbing. I did not think I would get impacted by this so much. Okay, I had to immediately cover it over with lentils. I have some pickled veggies here. This is bitter melon and radish and carrots. Just a little bit of vinegar and salt and sugar. I'm gonna go ahead and drain that liquid now. So a little bit of veggie pickles. This is sauerkraut that I bought way back when. Gonna add in a little bit of that. was in a bulk store in Manhattan and they had black quinoa and I was like, ooh, I've never had. Oh, actually, no, that's a lie. I bought this black quinoa at a Western Beef. I was walking one day and I bought some bulk black quinoa and some bulk popcorn, and I thought it wasn't too bad of a price, and I also never ate black quinoa before, so I was curious to try it, but never again, I guess. This was a limited edition burlap and barrel collaboration with Zuita. This is a rose and cardamom harissa. Not too spicy, but super flavorful. Small batch chili paste. Tunisian tradition. I'm gonna put a little bit of this in. What greens do I want in here? You know what? Let's chop up some of this fennel for my grain bowl. So glad that we sharpened our knife yesterday, because now I have these really thin slivers of fennel. Fennel is really strong, so the thinner you slice it, the less punchy of the licoriciness is. To reduce the licoriciness of it, you can roast it, but there's no way I'm turning on the oven soon. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit of pepper. And this is not for taste, but just a little bit of turmeric. This is just mostly for health. Turmeric and pepper together to make it more bioavailable, and then we can pick a sardine. I got Mediterranean, I got lemon. Oh, I have smoked. I always buy these when I see them on sale for $1. I just stock up. Let me see what I got. We got pickles, we got fennel. Let's go Mediterranean today. We've known all along that like eating more vegetarian based is good, so it's just a matter of making that choice, I think. I'm gonna drain off most of the oil in here because it's mostly soybean oil with like a splash of extra virgin, so. Here's my protein. I'm gonna go ahead and mix in the harissa a little bit here first. Also, I know some of you are gonna be like, what are you doing? But ketchup. It's gonna add a little salt and sugar and umami from the tomato. And I'm just gonna use a little bit of the mayo. I know it's not vegan, I know it's fatty, but just like that much. We gotta soften into this transition a little bit. I've already started feeling my body kind of seize with disappointment from just the sudden lack of cheese. I can't imagine what all this tastes like either. We just gotta try it. But this bowl will have almost every pocket of nutrition that I need. It's gonna have protein, a little fat, carb, vegetables and fiber, some spices. The ketchups go really well with the pickles. Trying to get one last olive to come out of there. Now we have sardines. Okay, I'm gonna pee, but I'll be back. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot about our most delicious mint. Nutritional yeast. I forgot about it because my jar ran out, so we're gonna refill the jar and add some of this in. I'm doing it over the sink because it's quite light and dusty and it kind of like poofs everywhere the way flour does when you sift it. So. Just pressing the air out of the bag before I seal it. You get your B vitamins, you get a little extra protein, it's delicious, it's cheesy, it's got like a little salty vibe. Perfect. Nutritional yeast I think is okay at room temperature. I buy it in the bulk packages because I like it a lot and I eat large amounts of it over time. It comes in plastic shaker bottles, like Bragg's is a brand that does it. It comes in powder sometimes. I got the flakes. There's different packaging. Also in the summer, I kind of just try to keep everything in the fridge because the temperatures get hot, there's increased humidity. Moisture and heat are two things that accelerate aging when it comes to ingredients. It encourages fatty stuff to turn rancid, like nuts. There's bugs that fester during hotter months too, so. Okay. The quinoa is still freaking me out, but at least there's other things in here. Wow, I really kind of regret buying that black quinoa, but it's okay, we'll get through it. We will train ourselves to endure and be ever more resistant towards being negatively affected. Although there's some things that I just can't get over, and I think my body is screaming at me right now. Okay, yeah, this is probably one of the most chaotic salads I've made for myself recently. Just with the bitter melon pickles and the fennel. There's a smoky hint too from the nutritional yeast. Very nice. I would say the most strange element in that salad is probably the bitter melon pickle, because it is bitter. But I don't mind it because the texture is very crunchy and pleasant to have in the mix of like mushy lentils and little seedy quinoa and creamy fish, so it's nice in there, but the flavor is a little bit jarring. It does taste like achar, like South Asian pickles. They tend to have a bitter edge, mustardy edge to me. Way more medicinal than, say, an American cucumber pickle or like a Japanese or Korean radish pickle. But I don't taste the fennel at all, so no problem there. When you have something so chaotic, the fennel kind of just disappears into the background. Okay. I'm going to put these back in the water for their second soak. All right, great. Thank you for washing my veggies with me, and eating and snacking and talking with me. Has anyone seen the show Adolescence? He recommended it to me, especially after hearing all of my dating stories. He's like, could be a fun, well, he didn't use the word fun, but he was just like, I think you might appreciate this show. The bite that I have, the fennel is giving a little bit of like a raw sliced onion mouthfeel without any of the pungent allium sharpness that you associate in flavor. It's there adding just like a little watery crunch. The quinoa is like very crispy almost. Not in a gritty way, but in like a, I think the black quinoa has like a extra branny layer around the kernel. So it gives me like a little, almost, you know the tiny baby orange caviar that you get on like cheap supermarket California roll sushi sometimes? it has that kind of poppy texture to it. The flavor, mostly outstanding, is that kind of, the cardamom rose harissa has a roasted peppery heat to it. It's not spicy, but there's like a warmth and smoky heat to it. It's combining with the nutritional yeast, which has a cheesy, creamy, also kind of funky flavor to it. And it's meshing with the sardines very well, which is the only component that has explicit oil. It's packed in oil, so it has a little fatness to it. The ketchup has totally disappeared into the flavor of the salad. It adds a nice rounded background sweetness to everything, and it's very well seasoned. The black pepper is adding a little bit of warmth on my tongue. The turmeric can't really be perceived, but I think the turmeric in combination with the bitter melon pickles is giving me that kind of South Asian achar vibe. It's got that kind of medicinal edge to it. So like I said, the bitter melon is the most jarring part of the bite, but overall, because I have carrots in here and lentils in here, and we have some like blander, sweeter elements that kind of tame all the sharper edges down a little bit. So it's like a very nice combination, I think. If it weren't for the bitter melon, this would be a really normal grain bowl, I think. What else? Oh yeah, and the fennel. Besides the textural add, I think the fennel's licoricey flavors adds a really nice bridge between the sweetness of the ketchup and the carrots and the lentils, and also cardamom harissa, the turmeric. So it blended things really well. I think I cut out a little bit there, but I hope you caught most of that. Lemon juice sounds good. I'm gonna add a little bit of apple cider vinegar too, because I have it. I think the acidity will add a nice layer of excitement. So yeah, a very diverse bite, shall we say. Hello, Gary from the bathtub. 1 to 10, how would you rate the bowl? I'm gonna give it a, personally for me, this is an 8.4. 6.8 points goes towards the just nutritional balance of this all. We've got all our food groups covered, and I think 1 point for the bravado of putting all the shit in one bowl. So that's 7.8. What did I give myself? Did I give myself an 8.4? And then 0.6 just for like the chance, the luck of this all working out and not being disgusting. It would have been a 10 if it weren't for the black quinoa in here. Honestly, the black quinoa is like really freaking me out, and I have more in the pantry that is dried and uncooked, and I have a whole bowl in there that I have to eat through. And I'm almost contemplating if I should like try to immersion blend it so that the visual effect of this quinoa stops basically gagging me. I have not had a food ingredient bug me out this much in a long ass time. So if you have any ideas of how to make this quinoa more palatable visually and mentally for me, please let me know. But the only thing I can think of is to blend it and blitz it into oblivion so that the disparateness of each grain with its little white tail disappears. Yeah, I'm usually really strong when it comes to like food disgust, but this one ingredient is knocking me out. I feel so weak against black quinoa. The black quinoa is fluffy in terms of grain separation, You know, the grains are not sticking together. As you can see, each grain is separate and sturdy on its own. But the grain itself on its own I would not describe as fluffy. It's poppy, if anything. Also, I gave away my 1 dozen eggs to Samira, but I have 1 singular egg left in the fridge. If you have any ideas on how to use my 1 egg, that'll be my other non-vegan ingredient that I'll eat for the next 3 months. I was thinking of maybe making like a pancake batter with it again, but without milk, I think that batter will taste pretty disgusting. Bolognese sounds really innovative. That's a great idea. I'm a little bit worried that visually it'll still gross me out, but fantastic suggestion of putting that in because it's already got that kind of ground meat texture. Amazing. Thank you for that. I've thought about smoothie, but I think it's gonna fuck up the taste of the mouthfeel of the smoothie. I don't think it's gonna blend the way oats do. I think because it's such a protein heavy carb, I think it's gonna taste a little bit gritty in there. Like the texture will be kind of disturbing going down. Overnight oats, yeah. Overnight oats it'll still retain the look. It'll just look like overgrown chia seeds, basically. Yeah, you're not oversimplifying. Someone said to just compost it. I'm not going to give it to a friend because it's so hard to clean. It's so gritty. The first time I cooked it, I soaked it for an hour. I rinsed it 3 times and then I made it, and it was like every 5th bite there was something crunchy in it. Not the kind of hurt my tooth crunch, but just like sandiness that like crunched in between my teeth. So this time when I cooked it, I soaked it for a whole day. I rinsed it 4 times. I boiled it in plenty of water, and then I rinsed it after I boiled it. And I'm still getting bites of grit, even though it's like much fewer bites of grit per bites, but I don't want to give this ingredient to a friend because I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that. It's true, it's not my jam. I learned though. But quinoa is a really good nutritional ingredient, so I don't want to like throw it away. And I think this is a challenge for me to just like try. Maybe I'll discover techniques for cleaning impossibly gritty quinoa that I can use at a future time. I don't look at it as like self-punishment. I look at it as how can I use this opportunity to learn something. And if I get fed up with eating this and looking at this, then I get fed up with eating and looking at it. But who knows, over time, I might be able to overcome this vulnerability. You know, you won't know until you try it. So I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna give it a few more tries, and if it doesn't work, then I'll never buy it again. End of story. Yeah, Dee, that's a great suggestion of mixing it into a veggie burger. Or like a veggie meatball. Ooh, a quinoa lentil veggie meatball in a bolognese sauce. We are cooking, guys. We are making Budget Eats collaboratively right now. Thank you for assisting me. And yes, that splash of vinegar added just like another 0.5 onto my total score. So acidity, very important. I also ordered a bag of psyllium husk, which has been shown to help with lowering cholesterol. And some people use psyllium husk in gluten-free bread. So that could be a really useful binder for testing out our quinoa burger patty meatball idea too. Yeah, who knows, you know, with this cholesterol issue, with health issues, as my diet changes, we'll find new ingredients and new ways to cook. It's not all about loss, it's also about gaining new insight and alternatives too. So looking forward to this journey. I'm sure there's endless amounts of learning that I can be doing as my new conditions evolve. Yeah, see? Everything that you guys are saying in the chat is exactly how my brain would work during shooting Budget Eats. I would be like, here are the ingredients that I have. What are the different combinations and arrangements I can use them in to produce different food items? So we've made patties, we've made burgers, we've made meatballs, we made a bolognese sauce. Like, you guys don't need me to do Budget Eats anymore. You have internalized Budget Eats. It has always been a part of you. That's why I show so much, because you have it within you already. And you saw yourself reflected back to you. And now you're reflecting Budget Eats back to me. Tortilla wraps, really? Do you bind it with anything else? Hey Siobhan, my new health updates are my cholesterol is whack. It increased in 2 months, so we're now sitting at 233, 240 total cholesterol with 155 LDL. So pretty high. And obviously me being inactive is not helping it. And we are also potentially probably lupus. I got a ANA blood work done. Panel says positive. The titer is 1 to 640, which is pretty high, which points to pretty severe autoimmune condition disease. But I'm gonna go see a rheumatologist next month, and we'll do more blood work, and we'll figure out exactly what it is, confirm whether or not it's lupus, and then see what sort of management we need to incorporate into our lifestyle, my lifestyle. That's the health rundown. Did you actually see a spark of creativity in my eyeballs? That's fun. Interesting. A quinoa tortilla. That's fun. That duck episode was life-changing. I think maybe besides the dead mom pantry episode that I did for Lunar New Year's, the duck episode did so much emotional processing for me. I had no idea facing an already plucked, cleaned, dead duck would create such a reaction out of me. That was very unexpected. And of course, just for the edit, Zach cut most of it out, but I had 20 minutes of footage of me just trying to touch the duck and process it and not being able to. I did kind of cry a little bit when I got this possible lupus diagnosis handed to me, but I will say that, you know, it's always better to know what it is than to like wonder why I feel like shit all the time. And also, this gives me a chance to tell my friends to shut the fuck up when they tell me that it's all in my head and that I just need to exercise more, you know? For a long time, I kept calling it long COVID because that was the only explanation I had for why I felt like shit all the time. And obviously, I had mono last summer, but I think the guy who possibly gave me mono was also of the opinion that I just needed to work out to not feel weak again. And man, to know that it's lupus is almost calming in a lot of ways, because I felt like while my friends meant well, it just really doesn't help somebody to tell them constantly to work out when they already don't have energy to like function. So it just adds to the guilt and the sadness that you're already feeling, on top of like physical exhaustion and psychological frustration. So now I can tell them to shut the fuck up. Okay, with this rinse water, I'm now going to dunk my pineapple in there before I cut it up into cubes. This pineapple is probably not ripe, but it is starting to already turn moldy on the bottom. And this pineapple is only $1, so I'm not expecting much. I'm expecting $1's worth of pineapple. If you can, try to chop up your compost so that they degrade easier and faster. Otherwise, people processing your compost will have to like stab at it with a shovel anyway to break it up. just an FYI, if you can take that extra time to break it down. It smells good, but yeah, it's looking a little pale, which probably means it's gonna be very astringent and kind of acidic. I can already feel it eating away at my hand flesh. If you don't know, pineapple has a flesh-eating enzyme in it. Obviously not a problem for most people, but if you are super sensitive, you will feel it. Okay. There are eyes in here, so I'm just going to carve it out with my paring knife. This is probably why people like buying pre-cut pineapple. But the price of convenience, trade-offs everywhere. You can probably also just shave off way more peel so that you're not like eyeing out each of these spots one by one. You'll lose more pineapple flesh. So again, trade-offs. You decide what's worth it. I think this is why rich people like lose touch with most of our realities, is they have so much resource they can just expend. It ceases to have meaning for them on that scale. So I think it's easy to like hate rich people, but they really are just living in a different world. They don't have the same concerns. So I almost look at them as if they are a different creature. You know, I wouldn't expect a cat to treat me the same way a human would. And after I've dated a few people, I've discovered that sometimes you can't even expect a human to treat you the way you would expect a human to, because there's just so much diversity within our own species now. Culture, standpoint, socioeconomic class, politics, philosophy. We've expanded in so many ways. There's so many different possibilities to be now. Okie dokes. think the last time I bought pineapple was maybe for grandma. I'm gonna try a little bit of the core just to see. Sometimes the core will tell you the flavor of the pineapple the best because it's not the most tasty part. That's actually pretty good. It's not too tart at all, but there's a little bit of astringency. It's almost sweet, like a pear that's 80% ripe. Not bad. Honestly, way better than I expected out of $1. It does have kind of that unripe pineapple taste. It can taste a little burnt tire rubber. You can smell it too. If you smell a pineapple that's not quite ripe, it smells like latex. So yeah, there is a little bit of that. I got 4 jars out of this pineapple, so plus the core, so a quarter. Each jar cost a quarter. Plus my manual labor of cutting, I guess, if you want to factor that in. It's so weird how I manually default to calculating my manual labor into the cost of something now. That's the way my brain works. I think that's the way that my brain has been taught to work when judging the value of something. Even if we're not participating physically in hustle culture, I think mentally we have been colonized to participate in hustle culture, just in terms of evaluating the worth of something. I think food prepping is therapeutic. I think besides the necessity of needing to feed yourself during the pandemic, there must have been a reason why folks started cooking so much, you know? Like, it probably was therapeutic to cook for yourself. It's a basic survival mechanism, feeding yourself. We have accomplished so much today. Amazing. All right, that does it for all of my food prep stuff for today. And yes, Dee, I normally go to the farmer's market on Sundays because that's the day of the week that my farmer's market, my local one anyway, that's when my farmer's market happens, so I usually buy a lot of produce on Sundays. And I try to wash all of the veggies on Sunday so that once the week starts, I have stuff to eat. Sablefish. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, that bag of chia seeds is from Costco. It was like unbelievably cheap. Probably for a bad reason. But yeah, Costco. Did you know that Costco also uses prison labor? Like many of your retailers, but a lot of cheese is made with prison labor too. I just found out. So in a lot of ways, my health is basically telling me to stop engaging in systems of exploitation because it often results in a decline of our own constitution as well as contributing towards the sustained detriment of other people's lifestyles. Yes, I believe this is why pineapple is used as a meat marinade, because it tenderizes meat. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of hidden costs. Well, let me just fact check this for you. I'm gonna Google Costco prison labor. Costco, okay, so this is the AI overview that Google defaults to, Gemini. Costco has a policy against using prison labor in its supply chain, specifically prohibiting suppliers from using prison or convict labor. This includes labor from those in work release or rehab programs. However, a 2024 report from the AFSC Investigate found that Costco sells eggs produced by Hickman's Family Farms, a company that has used prison labor for decades. Hickman's has faced lawsuits related to unsafe working conditions in their facilities. While Costco prohibits the use of prison labor in its direct supply chain, the company sells products from suppliers that may utilize such labor. So it's kind of like they're washing their hands clean and saying, I don't know, it's not me, but how else do you think you can get 3 pounds of chia seeds for $10? I think I paid like $8 or $9 or $10 for 3 pounds of chia seeds. And it's supposedly organic chia seeds? How? Thinking about the materials of resources that go into land, water, growing, human labor, machinery maintenance that is required probably for harvesting and cleaning, packaging, shipping, storage on shelves in Costco stores that probably have a lot of rent money going into its operations every month. How is it possible that you're selling 3 pounds of chia seeds for $10? Other companies also tied to prison labor: Sara Lee, Walmart, Rice Krispies, McDonald's, Whole Foods, Coca-Cola, Aldi, Russell Stover, Sam's Club, Target, Pepsi, Belgioso, cheesemaker, Polly-O, cheesemaker, Tyson, chicken, Dairy Farmers of America. So it's not so much that dairy is making us sick, it could be what kind of materials are going into dairy production. What kinds of labor practices are going into dairy production. Like, I know I'm getting kind of like new agey spiritual on this, but like exploiting workers to produce these products, consuming that, I think you also consume the grief and just the blood, tears, and sweat of those workers. You know, the cows are probably not happy, the workers are not happy, the earth is not happy, my body's not going to be happy. Hidden costs everywhere. We monetize everything. I even just monetized my calculations of like, is this worth it to cut up pineapple? You know, we monetize everything. We convert the value of everything into money, dollar signs. But that's just a nonsensical conversion. that cheapens everything and flattens everything that we experience into just the unit of money, which is totally made up, totally abstracted, and totally abused right now. Shall we go see where Princess is? Hi, Memo. How are ya? Do you want some greenies? You want your afternoon treat, baby? You want to come out? Come on. Yeah. Oh, babes. Ooh, good stretch. Yes. Here you go. That's it? No more? Hi. You want to come back around? Guess. Do you want a tube treat? Would you like a tube treat? Tube treat, baby. Chicken and cheese. Chicken with cheese. You already had one today. Does that mean you're not going to have this one? You want a little treat? Memo, you're composed so beautifully. You gave us a little artsy composition. You're such an auteur. An auteur. finished? Still have a little bit left. You done? Bye, Mama. Yes, that is the end of the live stream where we start spy on Memo. You've got the rhythm of my lives down now. I went to the Chinese supermarket yesterday and I bought this huge bag of dates. Apparently it's 5 pounds of dates. It was on sale for $13. You just know this shit is made with slave labor, okay? But this is the kind of bag that my mom used to buy, so I bought it. Maybe one day I'll stop buying slave dates. Just like I stopped buying slave chocolates. I'm gonna eat a shiso leaf. Ooh. It's kind of bitter. I guess they're like slightly overgrown. That's why they're so big. But I think I might have to blanch these too. Maybe when I do my radish greens, I blanch these first. Mm-hmm. Actually really, really delicious as a wrap. It's got a little bit of like a sesame oil richness to it on the flavor front. But yeah, a great way to get more veggies in. These are perilla leaves. I don't know to what degree they're related to shiso, but perilla and shiso were right next to each other on the stand. And they kind of taste similar and look similar to me. So I personally don't know the difference between the two. But perilla is like a major ingredient in Korean cuisine. And apparently perilla seeds are really good for menstrual health too. So the best part about buying my vegetables at the farmer's market is that every week I can try something new, see what's in season, and just vibe out with nature's bounty. Alright guys, I think that's it for me today. Thanks for hanging for 3 hours. Eat well, rest well, be kind to yourself, and practice doing more of nothing. It's a really nice reset and detox if you can afford it.